Hello, everybody. Today's topic for discussion is antidepressants. We shall be learning this topic mainly under the following headings, that is, classification of antidepressants. Then we shall be looking into three important classes of antidepressants, that is, tricyclic antidepressants, abbreviated as TCA, then selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, abbreviated as SSRIs, and atypical antidepressants. These are the three classes of antidepressants which are often asked for your exams, and hence we shall be concentrating on these for our session. And remember that these can be very well asked as short notes during your exam. So, by now, you must be knowing that depression is an affective disorder. That is, a disorder which affects the mood of a person. It can be of different types, can be reactive depression, endogenous or major depression, depressive syndromes, which can be either unipolar or bipolar. Now, going into the further description of these types is beyond the scope of today's class. Now, the causation of depression is explained by the monoamine theory of depression. It says that in depression, there is a deficiency of noradrenaline or serotonin or both at the postsynaptic effectors. That means the effector organs which are present beyond the synapse. So, just remember at this point that the drugs which are used for depression, their main aim would be to increase the levels of noradrenaline or serotonin or both at the postsynaptic effectors, because as per this theory of depression, there is a deficiency of noradrenaline or serotonin or both, which we want to rectify using different drugs. So the depression, the clinical features, most of you would be knowing some of the features. These include mood changes like sad, depressed mood, decreased interest in pleasurable activities, retardation of thoughts or agitation, then sleep changes, too much or too little sleep, appetite changes, fatigue or loss of energy, then cognitive changes like lack of attention, concentration, guilt, worthlessness, and the extreme cases may even present with suicidal ideation. So again, from the pharmacology aspect of learning, you may not be asked about the symptoms or the features of depression, but this is only as an introduction that I have told you the clinical features of depression. Now we come to the topic proper, that is antidepressants. So these are the drugs which can elevate the mood. They are also referred to as mood elevators. So whenever the term mood elevators are used, you should always remember it is referring to antidepressants. Most of them, as I already told you, act by increasing the levels of noradrenaline or serotonin or both at the postsynaptic effectors, but there are some antidepressants which are referred to as atypical antidepressants, which can act by other unique mechanisms, which we'll be discussing towards the end of this topic. Now we'll see the classification of antidepressants. Again, this you have to learn by heart. So the first one is reversible inhibitors of monoamine oxidase A. Reversible inhibitors of monoamine oxidase. This enzyme you have already learned when you were learning about the adrenergic transmission towards the beginning of your pharmacology classes. This will be shortened as RIMA, RIMA. Examples are moclobemide and chlorgelin. Then comes the important class of drugs which are often asked as short note, that is tricyclic antidepressants or TCA. There are two types of tricyclic antidepressants. The ones which are inhibiting the reuptake of both noradrenaline and serotonin, that is Na plus 5-HT reuptake inhibitors. Example, imipramine, trimipramine, clomipramine, amitriptyline, doxepin. So these are the examples of Na plus 5-HT reuptake inhibitors. Then we have got predominantly noradrenaline reuptake inhibitors. Example, desipramine, nortriptyline, amoxapine, and reboxetine. So these drugs individually will not be learning. We'll be learning the characteristic of the class as a whole, that is tricyclic antidepressants. Then we have got the second generation antidepressants, that is the antidepressants which were developed much later. This includes selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, that is SSRI. Example, fluoxetine, fluvoxamine, paroxetine, sertraline, citalopram, and escitalopram. It is a very important class of drugs which are very frequently used for depression treatment. So at least a few examples you should remember. Then serotonin and noradrenaline reuptake inhibitors. Example, S venlafaxine and duloxetine. And under atypical antidepressants, we have some examples like trazodone, meancerin, mirtazapine, bupropion, tianeptine, and atomoxetine. Again, you have to learn a few examples. That is, the first four can be learned by heart. Now, first we'll start with the reversible inhibitors of MAOA. So examples already we have mentioned. So these selectively and reversibly inhibit the monoamine oxidase A enzyme. This monoamine oxidase A enzyme is involved with the metabolism of noradrenaline and 5-HT. Now, if we inhibit this enzyme, the levels of noradrenaline and 5-HT will increase. Now, we already told you that the levels are less at the postsynaptic effectors. So we are trying to increase the levels by inhibiting the enzyme which metabolizes them. They are used only in mild to moderate depression. So before the reversible inhibitors of MAO-A were used, non-selective inhibitors of MAO, that is the ones which inhibit both the MAO-A and B, were used. However, these were found to have lots of problems. So we will just see what are the advantages of the reversible inhibitors of monoamine oxidase A over the non-selective MAO inhibitors. So the RIMA are reversible and short duration of action. They have a reversible and short duration of action. They do not have significant interaction with food and drugs. Like the non-selective MAO inhibitors, they had interactions with food and drugs which are not there in RIMA. The RIMA lacks anticholinergic, sedative, cognitive, and CVS adverse effects. That means the RIMA have comparatively lesser adverse effects than the non-selective MAO inhibitors. The RIMA are also safer in overdose, hence useful for depression in elderly patients and those with heart disease. That means if by chance the patient takes an overdose of the drug, then also it is somewhat safer as compared to the non-selective MAO inhibitors. So they can be safely given in elderly, because elderly sometimes may take an overdose because of forgetfulness or because of other reasons. They may take an overdose. That even if it happens, the RIMA are safer. That now we'll see the important next class. It is the tricyclic antidepressants. Again, I have already given you the examples, the same examples I have written here. So the mechanism of action, this is very important. What is the mechanism of action? So they inhibit the norepinephrine transporter. So you have already seen the norepinephrine transporter as well as the SERT transporter. So you already know that on the nerve terminal, you have seen that there are transporters which are involved in the reuptake of the monoamines like the noradrenaline, serotonin, etc. from the synaptic cleft back into the nerve terminal. Now, if you block these transporters which are taking back the monoamines into the nerve terminal, what will happen? The levels of the monoamines in the synaptic cleft will be more, and these monoamines now can act on the postsynaptic effectors. So the drugs inhibit the NET and the SERT mediated uptake of noradrenaline and 5-HT respectively, increasing the concentration of amines in the synaptic cleft. They also indirectly facilitate the dopaminergic transmission in the forebrain, resulting in stimulant action. So this also adds to the mood elevation. But the main action is this inhibition of NET and SERT. But they also increase the dopaminergic transmission. Dopamine is a stimulant, having a stimulant action. It is indirectly facilitating the dopaminergic transmission also in the forebrain. In addition to this NET and SERT inhibition, they also have got some other actions. That is, they can block a variety of other receptors like muscarinic receptors. That means the cholinergic receptors, alpha receptors, H1 receptors, 5-HT1 and 5-HT2 and D2 receptors. Now, because of these blockades also, you will have some other associated actions in TCAs, which you will see. You can expect that these TCAs might be having anticholinergic actions because they are blocking the muscarinic. They may be having an alpha blocking action, and they also may be having an antihistaminic action. So we can see that in the coming up slides. Now, the pharmacological actions, the CNS actions, it occurs only after 2 to 3 weeks of therapy. That means the therapeutic lag is there. But the moment you start the therapy, you will not see the change in the symptoms of the patient. It will take about 2 to 3 weeks of therapy to see the changes in the patient. What are changes do you see? You will see elevation of mood. The patient will become more communicative. He will start taking interest in self and surroundings. His night awakenings will be reduced, and some can produce sedation also. Some of these drugs can produce sedation. In overdose, seizure and respiratory depression can be seen with some of the TCAs. So seizure and respiratory depression occurs only in overdose. That means they are not very safe in overdose. Other actions are dry mouth, blurring of vision, constipation, and urinary hesitancy. This is all because of anticholinergic action, which I mentioned earlier. Tachycardia and arrhythmia can occur in overdose because of the noradrenaline potentiating action. So you know that they are increasing the levels of noradrenaline, and noradrenaline can cause tachycardia. Also, the anticholinergic action also adds up to the tachycardia. Then postural hypotension can occur because of alpha blockade. So these are the actions, all the anticholinergic actions. Then on the CVS, you can see tachycardia, arrhythmias, and postural hypotension. The pharmacokinetics, they are having good oral absorption. It's somewhat slow, but it is a good oral absorption. The one thing that you have to see is that there is wide inter-individual variation in the plasma concentration attained with the same dose. That means with the same dose, different individuals will attain different plasma concentration. So this type of therapy requires monitoring because you cannot be sure if the person has attained the adequate amount of concentration in his plasma because it is varying from person to person. It is highly bound to plasma and tissue proteins, metabolized in liver and excreted via urine. That is one very important or very characteristic phenomena associated with tricyclic antidepressants that is called as a therapeutic window phenomena. That means the optimal antidepressant effect. That means the antidepressant effect is exerted only at a narrow band of plasma concentrations, that is 50 to 200 nanogram per ml of TCAs like imipramine and amitriptyline. Both below and above this range, antidepressant effect is not optimum, means it doesn't occur. Okay, that means what you will see the antidepressant action only if the plasma concentration is between the said levels, both above as well as below. You will not see any kind of antidepressant action with that drug. That is the reason why you have to see that the plasma concentration is maintained between this level. If it is below or if it is above, even if it is above, there will not be any action. Now, adverse effects, anticholinergic effects. Then One of the problem is that it can sometimes the patient can go to mania. That means the effect from the antidepressant, that means the depression will be obviously corrected, but the patient will end up with mania. That is one problem with TCA. Postural hypotension, arrhythmias, increased appetite, and weight gain. This weight gain is also a very notorious problem which is seen with TCA. And you can see a lot of S's that are there with TCA: sedation and mental confusion, sweating. See, sweating is a paradoxical phenomena which is seen with TCA. That is, with anticholinergic action, I said that it is having anticholinergic action. So you will expect that there should not be any sweating. But in spite of the anticholinergic action, this TCAs produce sweating. And that is a paradoxical action. So sexual distress, seizure can occur, especially with large doses, especially in children, rashes and jaundice due to hypersensitivity. And another problem is physical dependence and discontinuation or withdrawal reaction. So the patient becomes physically dependent on the drug to remain happy, and discontinuation of the drug can lead to withdrawal reactions. So the adverse effects you have to learn very well, because your short note, whenever we ask for a short note on TCA, it should have the examples, mechanism of action, pharmacological actions, adverse effects. These are very, very important subheadings under which you will be writing the short note on TCA. Now, the TCA poisoning, as I already told you, it is not having a very good safety margin. It is not safe in overdose. So, what is that overdose characterized by? Excitement, anticholinergic symptoms like dry mouth, urinary retention, tachycardia, then convulsions, hypotension, tachycardia, arrhythmias, respiratory depression, and coma. How will you treat the TCA poisoning? So it is mainly a supportive treatment. That is, you only manage the symptoms. You don't have an antidote for it. See, so you'll give the gastric lavage to remove the poisoning, remove the poison. You will give respiratory assistance, because you can see a lot of respiratory depression can be there. You have to maintain the BP because it's hypotension, and for that you have to give IV fluids. Because there are convulsions, you have to give diazepam, which is benzodiazepine. And for arrhythmias, you can prescribe propranolol or lidocaine. So it's all supportive management of the clinic symptoms that are occurring in the TCA poisoning. Now, what are the uses of the TCA? So it is used, or it is one of the important drugs for treating major depression. It is also used for other conditions, that is obsessive compulsive disorders. Obsessive compulsive disorders. It is used for neuropathic pain. Now, this is one of the areas where it finds a lot of use. Neuropathic pain that is seen in diabetic neuropathy, post-herpetic neuralgia, fibromyalgia. Then, other than all these, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in children, enuresis, migraine, and pruritus. So, topical TCAs are available which can be used for pruritus. So, you can see that it is used for psychiatric disorders, that is major depression, obsessive compulsive disorders. Then you can see non-psychiatric disorders like neuropathic pain, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, then enuresis, migraine, and pruritus. So you should write all these as a therapeutic uses of TCA. Now that finishes the discussion on TCAs. We'll shift to the next topic, that is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs. Again, this is very, very important for your short note. These were developed to overcome the drawbacks of TCA. So I mentioned there are a lot of drawbacks. It is there, the therapeutic lag is there. They're not safe in large doses. They are not having a good safety margin. In the individual variations are there. Again, you have got, we mentioned a lot of adverse effects also. So all these, to overcome all these drawbacks of TCAs, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors were developed. And we have quoted already the examples of the SSRIs. So you can just remember all these 4 examples or even more. Then what is the mechanism of action? They inhibit the selectively, they are inhibiting the serotonin that transporter only. The TCAs, they were inhibiting both the noradrenaline and serotonin reuptake inhibitors, but this one is inhibiting the reuptake of the serotonin through the serotonin reuptake. So there will be an increase in the serotonin levels in the synaptic cleft. Advantages of SSRIs, there is no therapeutic lag. Means whenever you start the therapy, the patient will start showing improvement very soon. It will not take 2 to 3 weeks like TCAs. It has got high safety margin. It is safe in overdose. Then there are no anticholinergic effects, no postural hypotension, no arrhythmia, no weight gain, no sedation, no precipitation of seizure, and there is less risk of switching over to mania during treatment. So what all adverse effects or unwanted things that we saw in TCAs are not there in the SSRIs. Now, what are the SSR adverse effects of SSRIs? They are having nausea, diarrhea. It can also have some sexual distress, like interferes with ejaculation, insomnia, headache, nervousness, restlessness. Sometimes it can produce impairment of platelet function and lead to epistaxis. They are all microsomal enzyme inhibitors. So they can raise the plasma levels of TCA, haloperidol, clozapine, terfenadine and all. So there can be significant drug interactions between the SSRIs and these drugs. This is one important area that you have to be attentive. Then something called as serotonin syndrome is there. That is, these are symptoms like agitation, restlessness, hyperthermia, rigidity, delirium, convulsions. When do they occur? They occur when a patient who is taking SSRIs takes any other serotonergic drug like MAO inhibitor, pethidine, etc. So any patient who is taking this SSRI, if he takes any other serotonergic drug like pethidine or MAO inhibitors, he can develop the serotonin syndrome, which is characterized by all these clinical features. Another problem is that if we discontinue the SSRIs, they can also end up with withdrawal symptoms like sleep disturbances, bowel upset. Yeah, and that can occur in some. So though it has got some advantages over the SSRIs, I mean the TCAs, it has got its own adverse effects also. Now, I have just mentioned the important SSRIs. I've just shown the T half and the comments, additional comments. You can see fluoxetine. It is the longest acting, and it can like the metabolite has a T half of 7 to 10 days. The others don't have the active metabolite except sertraline. So you can see sertraline is a very having a T half of 26 hours and even longer acting metabolite. And you can see citalopram, they are all having very long T half. And you can see they are all, these comments which I have written is some additional, the adverse effects or the additional comments with each of them. So you can see sertraline, which is having a high patient acceptability. This is one of the very important drugs very frequently prescribed. Then you can see depoxetin. It is a very fast-acting drug, and this is mainly used for premature ejaculation, treatment of premature ejaculation, and it can be given 1 hour before intercourse. This is depoxetin. This is again an additional use than in depression. Now, the uses are major depression, just like the TCA, obsessive compulsive disorder. Additionally, you can see anxiety disorders, panic disorder, phobia, post-traumatic stress disorder, premature ejaculation, you are using depoxetin. So you can see all these are the uses of SSRI. So again, SSRI you will mention under examples, mechanism of action, advantages over TCA, the adverse effects of these SSRI, and you will mention a little bit about the important SSRIs, and finally you will end up the short note with the therapeutic uses of SSRI. These are the headings that you will be using for writing a short note on SSRIs. Now we'll go to the next class, that is serotonin and noradrenaline reuptake inhibitors, SNRIs. So they inhibit the reuptake of 5-HT and NA, just like we studied in TCA. But what's the difference? They do not have actions on other receptors like the muscarinic receptors, the alpha receptors, and H1 receptors. So this is the area where they are different from the TCAs. They are having similar antidepressant efficacy to TCA but has faster onset of action and doesn't produce the usual side effects of TCAs, which are occurring because of muscarinic blockade, alpha blockade, and H1 blockade. So this is the SNRIs. We'll have some additional uses of SNRIs other than in depression. You can see um, they are used in neuropathic pain and all, and also in premature ejaculation, in case of postmenopausal flushes and all. There are some other uses also, but we are not going to too much into the SNRIs. Our main concentration is on the TCAs and on the SSRIs. So finally, we'll see the atypical antidepressants. So these are antidepressants which are not um, working as per the TC, like the TCF and SSRIs. It means they are having some novel mechanisms of action. So we'll see some of them. Trazodone, which is not a very popular drug. So what is it doing? It um, blocks the 5-HT reuptake, but it is a weak blockade. It is mainly having an alpha blockade and 5-H2 antagonist. So it is blocking alpha receptors and 5-H2 receptors. The 5-HT blockade is weak, not having any anticholinergic or others is arrhythmia or seizure. ADRs are nausea, sedation, postural hypotension, and priapism. And this is not a very popular drug. Mianserin, again, it's not a very popular drug. It blocks the presynaptic alpha 2 receptors. Already you know that the presynaptic alpha 2 receptors, they are inhibitory in nature. They inhibit the release of noradrenaline. So if you block those receptors, there's an increased release of Na. And this is how the levels of Na is increasing with mianserin. Now there were too many reports on the blood dyscrasias and liver dysfunction, and because of that, it has restricted the use of mianserin. Next one is mirtazapine, and this is also called as the noradrenergic and specific serotonergic antidepressant. That means it is noradrenergic and specific serotonergic antidepressant. So why is it called so? It blocks the alpha 2 autoreceptors on the non-adrenergic neurons and alpha 2 heteroreceptors on serotonergic neurons. It is blocking the alpha 2 autoreceptor. Autoreceptors means alpha 2 is mainly inhibiting the release of noradrenaline. Alpha 2 heteroreceptors, they are inhibiting the release of 5-HT. 5-HT. That is why they are called as heteroreceptors. Here, it is a receptor which is acting on its own mediator. However, this is acting on a different mediator, that is serotonin. Whatever, whenever these autoreceptors and heteroreceptors are blocked, there is an enhancement of noradrenaline and 5-HT release. So this is how they are increasing the levels of 5-HT and Na by blocking the alpha 2 autoreceptors and alpha 2 heteroreceptors. They can selectively enhance the antidepressive action by even stimulating the 5-HT1 receptors. Now, so you can see that there are different action from the TCAs and SSRIs. That is, they are not having any action on the inhibition of reuptake, but they are mainly acting by the blocking of alpha 2 autoreceptors and heteroreceptors. Their antidepressant efficacy is comparable to TCA, but the sedation and weight gain are the main adverse reaction. Then we have got the next atypical antidepressant, that is bupropion. It inhibits the DA and noradrenaline uptake. So there is no serotonin uptake that is inhibited. It is the dopamine uptake and the noradrenaline uptake which is inhibited. It is non-sedative, but it has got an excitant property because you see that there's a level of DA is increased, which can be having a stimulant effect. It is other than depression, it is mainly used as a drug for cessation of smoking. The ADRs usually seen are agitation, dry mouth, insomnia, precipitation of seizures. With that, we have come to the end of the antidepressants. We can also now look into the anti-anxiety drugs because it's a very, very short session, and we can wind up the anti-anxiety drugs also along with the antidepressant drugs. So we'll be looking into a brief introduction to anxiety. We'll classify anti-anxiety drugs and we'll briefly discuss about the pharmacology of each class of anti-anxiety drugs. Anxiety is an emotional state, unpleasant in nature, associated with uneasiness, discomfort, and fear about some defined or undefined future threat. So, this is only the definition of anxiety. The treatment of anxiety is needed when it becomes excessive and disproportionate to the situation. That means anxiety usually can be relieved by meditation, or it often goes away without much of a treatment with psychological counseling and all. But when it becomes too much excessive and disproportionate to the situation, you have to treat it with drugs. Types of anxiety: generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, panic attacks, post traumatic stress disorder, social phobia, or social anxiety. Again, the description of these things are beyond the scope of this class. So anxiety, we can say in short, they are having psychological symptoms. That is a fear of, that is symptoms like fear, restlessness, and all these things. And they also have got some physical symptoms, and these physical symptoms like sweating, dizziness, tachycardia, all these are because of sympathetic overactivity. So whenever we are treating anxiety, we have to treat the psychological symptoms as well as the physical symptoms which are occurring because of sympathetic overactivity. Now, the anti-anxiety drugs that we use are mild CNS depressants. They control the anxiety and produce a restful state of mind. They do not interfere with the normal mental or physical functions. They can produce physical dependence and hence can be abused by individuals. Now, the anti-anxiety drugs, major class are benzodiazepines like diazepam, chlordiazepoxide, oxazepam, lorazepam, alprazolam. Azapirons like buspirone, gepirone, sedative antihistaminic like hydroxyzine, beta blocker like propranolol, and SSRIs and FNRIs, which we discussed in the previous class, are also used as anti-anxiety drugs. Benzodiazepines, there are different examples are there, and the mechanism of anti-anxiety action is they facilitate the inhibitory GABAergic transmission in the limbic system. So one line only I have mentioned as a mechanism of action, that is they facilitate the inhibitory GABAergic transmission in the limbic system. This is because about the functioning of the GABA receptor you have learned elaborately when you were studying sedative hypnotics. The same mechanism, how they are increasing the GABA transmission, has to be added along with it, with this. Now, benzodiazepines with slow and prolonged actions are preferred for anxiety over other benzodiazepines. So they relieve anxiety at low doses without much of a CNS depression. They do not cause much of a serious or respiratory side effects, and they are having lower dependence producing liability compared to other CNS depressants like barbiturates, which we have learned in sedative hypnotics also. Even the withdrawal syndrome is milder and they are relatively safe in overdose. These are the advantages of benzodiazepines as anti-anxiety drugs. They can produce sedation, lightheadedness, and cognitive impairment, which is more seen in elderly. They can have and produce increased appetite and weight gain. Failure of ovulation can occur in some women. It can produce dependence also on long-term use. The uses are mainly chronic anxiety and acute anxiety. Chronic anxiety, chlordiazepoxide is used, and for acute anxiety, other drugs can be used. The next drug is azapirone, example buspirone. The mechanism of action, it is a partial agonistic action on the autoreceptor, that is 5-HT1A, and it will reduce the serotonergic activity in the dorsal raphe. Now, this pre autoreceptor is somewhat different. So it will actually increase um, it is increasing the levels of 5-HT. We were talking about autoreceptors like alpha 2. Now this is an autoreceptor on 5-HT of the serotonin. So this is going to increase the the reduced serotonergic activity in dorsal raphe. The autoreceptor, the alpha 2 autoreceptors, they were actually, the main function was to reduce the Na, and whenever they were blocked, they used to increase the noradrenaline transmission. Here, this autoreceptor, the normal function is to reduce, and we are using a drug that is a partial agonist. That is, it will further reduce the serotonergic activity in the dorsal raphe. It is also an antagonist on 5-HT1A postsynaptic receptor. So it is an agonist on the presynaptic 5-HT1A receptor and an antagonist on the postsynaptic 5-HT1A receptor. It has got weak D2 action, but no antipsychotic effect. It's again a drug which is given orally and has got high first pass metabolism. There is some advantages of using Bispiron. It is mainly used for chronic anxiety. That is, the advantages are no marked sedation or any cognitive impairment, no physical dependence or tolerance, no muscle relaxant or extrapyramidal effect, no withdrawal symptoms. So this is the one of the drug which can be very safely used in anxiety because it is not having many of the said adverse effects of benzodiazepines. Hydroxyzine, as you already know, is an H1 antihistaminic, and the anti-anxiety property is on mainly because of its sedative effect, and it is used mainly in reactive anxiety. That is, an anxiety which is a reaction to a failure in the exam or a death or a disease. This can be given. That is, the patient can be sedated so that the patient can be relieved of his anxiety. Then comes the beta blockers. The example is propranolol. Now, the beta blockers, they are not taking care of these psychological symptoms of anxiety. They're taking care of the physical symptoms of anxiety, which are occurring because of the overactivity of the sympathetic nervous system. So they will reduce the symptoms of anxiety like palpitation, tachycardia, rise in BP, sweating, tremor, GIT hurrying, etc. There is no action on psychological symptoms. They are useful in acute stressful situations to overcome performance and situational anxiety like examination fear, public appearance, etc. They also may be used as adjuvants or additional drugs to benzodiazepines. SSRIs and SNRIs they can be used for chronic anxiety. Mainly, they're used for social anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorders, eating disorders, post-traumatic stress disorders. So that is about the anti-anxiety drugs. So whenever you are asked about anti-anxiety drugs, again you can write the classification and you can briefly describe each of the anti-anxiety drugs, their mechanism of action, and their uses in chronic and acute anxiety. This is the way you have to deal with short notes coming from antidepressants and anti-anxiety drugs. So thank you.